Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 News, a late night update for the late night sim racing antics of Max Verstappen that became a big talking point after the Hungarian Grand Prix weekend. Red Bull said yes, they've talked to Max and said no, you are no longer up to 3 AM sim racing before a championship race on Sunday. Max says they cannot tell me what to do because I can't tell them what to do. Is this indicative of further frictions in that Red Bull camp? Lots of other updates as well ahead of the Belgian Grand Prix this weekend. Very much on Twitter your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new as always. This is Yuki Tsunoda's helmet for this weekend, like a Valorant Inspire one, pretty interesting, nice little crossover there to be fair. But this big news today on Esteban Ocon confirms multi-year arrangement with Haas Formula 1 team. He talked about the progress they've made, talking about being happy and optimistic about the future of the team. All those make a lot of sense for Haas to sign Ocon, but at the same time, there wasn't really too many other options out there for Ocon. The belief is that after, again, a bit of friction with his teammate in Pierre Gasly over the last couple of seasons, he's going to join a different outfit, and Haas was pretty much the only one, it seems, that were specifically interested. But to be fair for Ocon, again, this makes a fair bit of sense. Haas are on the up. I actually really like this driver partnership. One of the tallest as well in Formula 1 history, himself and Oliver Behrman for next season. But yes, Ocon will join on his day a top quality driver. A lot of pace in there, but obviously a bit of an erratic driver at times, and there can be issues with him and his teammates. I think it's actually the perfect kind of baptism of fire in many ways for Oliver Behrman in the sport, and I really like that driver pairing, and if they can keep up their positive momentum, it does make an awful lot of sense for next season. This is another rather remarkable statistic, that every single time Nico Hülkenberg has left a team and joined somebody else, Ocon has replaced him, and it's happened again here with Haas. So he left Force India in 2016, Ocon joined for the next season, the same with Renault, and now the same with Haas going into 2025 and beyond. That leaves the driver lineup like this. We've kind of known this Ocon thing now for some time, but it's now been confirmed. Magnussen is gone, Hülkenberg will, well, we don't know who he's going to partner. Still, we don't know where Sainz is going to slot in, and that is the big discussion still around the driver market, where he's going to go. Is Sainz going to end up at Merc? Right now, you'd say probably not. Antonelli is very much impressed, and who knows about the Max Verstappen situation that we will continue to discuss in a couple of minutes' time. Maybe Alpine is a possibility after this rumour of the Mercedes engine partnership from 2026, and then, of course, Sainz is still on the possibilities for Williams and for Kick Sauber that are going to become Audi, probably not for RB, and they are still yet to confirm what they're going to do with their second driver, because they're still yet to really confirm what they're going to do in their main team going forwards. So Ocon's going to join. That's now an official confirmation, a multi-year deal, although not exactly sure what that precisely looks like. This as well, just on the Alpine thing, there was their former legal manager, Pierre Schauti, claims that the team is basically going to switch to Mercedes, and it's effectively like a done deal, and then he roasts Luca De Meo, the CEO, and Lauren Rossi, who's also been involved at the top side. So, you know, should be no real surprises that you've got former Alpine guys clowning on their management, because they deserve it, let's be real. But yeah, nonetheless, that's where we are as of today. Just quickly as well on the whole Audi situation, because they had that big drama with, well, the drama wasn't seen publicly, but the belief is that behind the scenes there was some sort of power struggle with Andreas Seidel, who's now gone, and Mattia Binotto's coming in as their COO, CTO, not as their team principal. And there are rumours that, well, Aston might not be so happy with the leadership of Mike Cracker, of course, has been their team principal now for a couple of years. Lawrence Stroll, you know, he's trying to win, and under Mike Cracker's leadership, they have not exactly progressed as they might like to have done from the start of 2023. So there's a feeling that maybe Cracker's either under serious pressure or he's going to get fired, and if he does, Audi are the potential target that might be interested in him. Other drama as well, quickly on Logan Sargent. Marcus Ericsson, of course, former Formula 1 driver, now has gone over to IndyCar, won the Indy 500. He made some comments, Ericsson, on the fact that James Vowles and Sargent's relationship is now more strained than it was previously because of his, you know, poor performance. And Sargent then says, no, that's not true. The guy has no idea what he's talking about. I've never spoken to him in my life. I don't plan on it either way. So, yeah, just a bit of drama there, really. I don't think it, frankly, changes anything with regard to Logan Sargent's future. He's not going to be staying in the sport. The question is who replaces him. The most prominent present rumour is actually Bottas, a return to Williams, just because that seems to make the most sense on paper, given what Audi are up to, you know, the whole Sauber thing in the future, the fact that Sainz is obviously looking there, but maybe Sainz to Williams is still very much on the cards as well, given it's unlikely that he gets a drive with a top team. That's actually what Sainz even says. He says, yeah, next year I would love to have a championship winning car, but the likelihood is small. I think the Mercedes thing is definitely small. The Red Bull thing, it's crazy crazy to think about, but the Red Bull seat for Sainz might even be more likely than a Mercedes seat, just because I think Mercedes are so committed to putting Antonelli in the car that I actually think it's maybe more likely that Verstappen would just, leave Red Bull, and then, of course, a drive would open up at Red Bull, which Sainz could potentially go to, and then you no longer have the whole Verstappen senior, Sainz senior situation, which currently you're running into. He also was asked the question, does Binotto going to Audi impact the decision? He says, not really. So saying that maybe has something to do with it. I speculated yesterday that maybe it's a positive thing for Audi that they've got Binotto because of his relationship with Sainz. He's worked together before, but is that good or bad, right? Does Sainz think that Binotto's throw was good or bad? Because if you think it's bad, then he might actually, then not really affecting it, might actually be, I'm not going to go there, even more likelihood, right? Rather than I actually do prefer that given the situation. But let's talk about Red Bull, because the drama with this team is not going away. He was asked the question today, Sergio Perez, are you absolutely convinced this will not be your last race? Because the rumour was, after Spa, summer break comes into effect, Red Bull are going to evaluate the situation. Even Helmut Marko has made this very clear indeed. He's like, yeah, we are going to analyse what's happening with Sergio Perez and make the decision after Spa, making it absolutely abundantly clear that this is not a done deal yet. There also have been some interesting rumours over the last couple of days, just before I forget to mention them, because Helmut Marko has been more prolific maybe in the media over the last couple of weeks than he was during the whole Christian Horner saga. There was a feeling that Horner had, let's say, won the internal power struggle and that Marko's influence was waning. There were rumours emerging, I don't know if these are true, but there have been rumours that have been going around that the contract clause which allows Verstappen to leave for free if Helmut Marko resigns or steps away or retires or whatever no longer exists. And there's been some rumours that that has been changed so that Marko can basically gather more power back in the team. And this may add some reason as to why Max is increasingly frustrated, because if that is true, then it seems like Red Bull are making it increasingly difficult for him to leave the team over the next couple of years, even though there may be a good few reasons why Max wants to leave Red Bull in the near future. But back to the Sergio Perez thing, Helmut Marko was making it very clear that, yeah, we're going to make the decision after Spa whether he stays or not, and he needs a good race here. Max says, or Perez says, yes, correct, 100% I'm going to stay in the team, although that's not the verdict we've really been getting from behind the scenes, is it? Pierre Wache actually mentions on Checo and says, if I knew why he was struggling so bad, I would fix it. It's difficult to say. I think it's partly on our side, so, saying that, it's mostly Perez's fault for being bad, basically, but he does say we're going to try our best to help him extract performance from the car. I have some feedback from him. We have some feedback. We try to help him. But kind of the read between the lines there is we try, but there's only so much we can do on that situation. But let's talk about this sim racing stuff, because you guys showed so much support on yesterday's video. Really appreciate it. Loads of new subscribers. Smash through some sub goals. So yeah, subscribe if you haven't already, all that good stuff. But basically, it was on the topic of sim racing for Max Verstappen. He loves sim racing. He loves iRacing. Loves everything of that nature. And for multiple Grand Prix this season, there has been either an iRacing special or 24 hours of Nürburgring or whatever that he's been racing the night before, a qualifying session, a race session or whatever. And you can argue it both ways. Either that's Max's free time, he can do what he likes. If he wants to sim race, keep race fit or mentally fit or sharp or whatever you want to say, he's free to do that with his boys, obviously having a good time. He's built to race, this guy, so that's what he wants to do. But at the same time, you can argue, well, you're paying him 60, 70 million euros a year to race Formula 1. Maybe that should be where the focus lies. And there's been discussion on this in, Formula 1 history, when Lewis Hamilton will be flying to events between weekends or midweek, and then people are like, oh, he's not, locked in for the weekend or whatever. But Helmut Marko said this, and we talked about this quote yesterday. His late night sim racing appearance on the Hungary weekend only came about because a driver in his team dropped out. Nevertheless, we agreed that he will no longer run simulations so late, which implies that the team and Max had a conversation, and basically they said, look, Max, we don't appreciate you running these sim racing sessions so late. We feel like it affected your performance on the Sunday, because if they didn't feel like it affected his performance, then they wouldn't have, said what they apparently said to him. And obviously there was speculation during the race, because he had a bit of a difficult time in multiple ways, that maybe his late night on Saturday had affected his Sunday performance. Maybe it was a factor. I don't think it was a massive factor. I think there were other things in play. All the building frustrations behind the scenes at Red Bull certainly didn't help the situation. But at the end of the day, Red Bull seems to believe it was a factor, because otherwise, why would they have said this to Max? So today, Max was then asked to comment on this. What about Helmut Marko's words that you'd had a talk with the team and they'd effectively said, look, Max, not so late. Not like they'd banned him precisely, but they'd, apparently banned him or whatever from driving so late into the night, which of course works in some part. Verstappen, though, said this: "It's not that I have a ban. I also don't need to tell them what they do in their private time, and that is the same to me." And this, to me, is a quote of someone who is, you know, a world champion, absolutely utmost confident in their own abilities to regulate the situation, and frankly believes that, you know, not, I wouldn't say they control the team precisely, but believes that the team should yield to his will on some level. And you can argue whether that's perfectly justified, because the likes of Schumacher, the likes of Hamilton, other great champions will feel the same way. But, you know, would Horner be hearing these comments and thinking, is he putting himself above the team? This type of stuff, right? And I thought it was very interesting that this was said in this manner, and this was kind of the interview that he mentioned it. He was like, look, I'm a 3-time world champion, I know what I'm doing, and I can effectively do what I want in some ways, right? As Max says this, when I won both races in Imola, because he won the Imola Grand Prix on Sunday, and then he also won like the 24 Hours of Nürburgring, whatever it was, the night before, basically, and he said, yeah, you don't hear anyone complaining then, which is true, right? People were talking about it, but it was like, wow, very impressive what Max did. And as I said yesterday, it's not like his own team can turn around and say, oh yeah, nice one, Max, like, you know, you're not going to do that again, because Max is like, well, I won, Hungary didn't win, and all of a sudden there's discussion about it. I think I've been doing this since 2015, I've won 3 world titles, I think I can estimate fairly well what I can and what I can't do. So what do you guys think about this? Because frankly, I was not quite expecting this response from Max today. There was also this I found quite interesting. There was a clip going around of Giampiero Lambiase, so last year, 2023, where they were dominating, they had an interview here where GP said, yeah, you see how he's moaning at me over the radio and we're winning everything, what's going to happen when we're not winning everything? And Max said, oh, I think it's going to be fine. And you know, here we are a year later, and Max is moaning at him on strategy, and GP's coming back and calling him childish. There's all sorts of stuff going on, and maybe Red Bull felt that was in some way connected to the whole sim racing thing. But you know, very interesting words from Verstappen. Of course, he was grilled on this further and asked on the whole Lambiase discussion, and Verstappen said, look, I'm driven, we are critical of each other, and I say what I want, type thing. So, you know, Verstappen's being very clear here that he is the man of this team, and the team will effectively do as he demands in some way. And let's see what Christian Horner thinks about that, because there were rumours when Christian Horner kind of won this power struggle, or whatever you want to say, behind the scenes at Red Bull earlier on this year, that Horner was effectively of a mind of, you know, maybe we don't need Max Verstappen. If Max leaves, we'll be fine. We've got Newey, no longer the case. We've got, you know, Pierre Wache, we've got Enrico Balbo, we've got a strong technical team, and we can still build a competitive team going forwards. I think Verstappen, it's funny really that it's brought out to him on the sim racing thing. It kind of, you know, reminds me, not really to be honest, but you know, when like Biden and Trump were debating and like they weren't really discussing anything, and then when they talked about golf, they got really riled up about each other, talking about the handicaps. It's kind of like Max will talk about some things, but usually relatively on the surface level, but all of a sudden try and take away his sim racing, and Max is like, no, I'm going to do what I want, it's my team, you know, I'll do what I want, you can't tell me what I'm going to do, I'll say what I want to say, and I'm going to do what I want to do, type thing. So, you know, Red Bull will now have to think how they respond to this situation, and, you know, of course, Max had some further discussion on it as well. If you're going to go to war with Max over him not sim racing too late into the night, you're probably not going to win this battle, and it's probably not going to help the relationship with Max either. There's been lots of talk lately about intra-team and inter-team relationships, certainly with regard to the Norris-Piastri fiasco that happened at Hungary last weekend alongside all this Verstappen stuff. And, you know, Red Bull would probably not be wise to worsen the relationship with Max, especially right now, given that there are a few reasons why he might consider leaving, especially because Mercedes have a very attractive offer on the table. We believe that Toto Wolff is very ready to sign the contract whenever that possibility may arise. So, you know, I don't know if it would be in Red Bull's best interest to fight this one especially hard. And look, Max is a winner at heart. He wants to win everything he can. And if he felt like the sim racing stuff was taken away from his performance, he'd probably stop doing it. But the reality is, as far as he's concerned, the championship fight is still alive. These are points scored over the last 5 rounds. Verstappen has still scored the most points. Norris has actually scored 20 points less than Max in the last 5 rounds. The Constructors, of course, is far more interesting, really, because McLaren have scored substantially more points than Red Bull over the last 5 rounds as well. But, you know, we do have a, you know, situation where Max believes, we think, that the championship fight is still alive. There was actually this quote today, well, it wasn't a precise quote, but Will Buxton says that he just had a fascinating chat with Max. You'll be able to see it on F1 TV soon. Perhaps the most telling is that despite the doubts some may have, Max is adamant that Lando can still win the World Championship, sees the threat as very, very real. But, you know, you can argue it both ways, actually, as Adam does in the replies, that McLaren don't care, because if they did did care, then they would have told Piastri to yield and said, look, Lando's in the championship fight here. We're going to let Lando lead home this one too. They didn't, and probably not doing so was a wise thing for the future chemistry of their team. But that decision by McLaren was, you can argue, an admission of the fact that the title fight for the drivers they think is over. Max doesn't, and especially when he again drives this weekend with a likely engine penalty that will set him down to at least 11th on the grid. The recovery from there is going to be challenging, unless the Red Bull is as good at Spa as it was for the last couple of years in a row. And this is the type of race where you really need Sergio Perez to step up, but there are questions whether we'll see that or not. Hamilton as well was asked on how the Max Verstappen, let's say, friction with GP was actually handled, and basically said, how should he tackle the season with the increased pressure on Red Bull that they're currently experiencing? And Hamilton says this: you have to be a team leader, a team member, maybe not such a leader, but just always remember you're a teammate to a lot of people. You have to act like a world champion, he says, not like it was last weekend in Hungary. So look, I think wise, sage advice here from Hamilton, but nonetheless, definitely calling out Max's conduct, shall we say. And he also went on to say that he was very surprised by the steward's decision, right? He did himself say it was a racing incident, but basically the steward said that they felt that car number 44, Hamilton, could have done more to avoid the contact. And Hamilton was like, what do you mean? I had to make the corner at some point. Max was out of control. And he actually said, yes, I was really, really surprised by the steward's outcome. Now, of course, Hamilton's going to be biased because he's in the other car, but it doesn't stop the fuel to the fire of this idea that the stewards, there's been several incidents over the last few years that you can look at and say, were the stewards more lenient to Max than they would have been to another driver there? Like Alonso got a 10-second penalty, whatever it was, back in Austria for, causing a collision or whatever, but, you can argue that this in some ways wasn't too dissimilar, and Alonso got a penalty for that and not for this, and Alonso got the penalty in China, and Verstappen isn't getting stuff, and, it's just going to add more fuel to the fire of that discussion, really. But, look, Hamilton says, I was relaxed about the situation, I just said it's a racing incident, just move on, but considering one car was in control, one car was not in control at the time, and if you look at the replay, I was very, very far from the apex. There's a lot of room on the right-hand side, so I was very, very surprised that they said no further action, and they said Hamilton could have done more to avoid the contact, right? Speaking quickly of Mercedes, they have a new floor in Belgium. They brought something to Hungary, and they were talking, actually, I think Toto Wolff said, that when they won in Silverstone, he was like, wow, we didn't expect to win because we thought we were going to win in Hungary or potentially Spa with the new upgrades. So they've brought a new floor here, and we know that the floor is a pretty, chief manufacturer of downforce on the car. This is the new floor edge, their Bahrain version, their Miami version, and now this is their Spa version. So we'll see how much performance that potentially brings to their car, but very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.